Hi, you're watching Just the News. I'm Amata Balachandra. Now, like we've been doing every single day, we start off with COVID numbers. India has reported more than 1 lakh daily COVID-19 cases for the first time in 7 months. It's reported 302 deaths, and this is in a span of 24 hours. India's active COVID-19 caseload currently stands at more than 3 lakh. Now, Mumbai has reported 20,971 cases in the last 24 hours. Karnataka has reported 8,449 new COVID cases, and Bengaluru alone recorded over 6,800 infections. Meanwhile, Omicron COVID variant cases in India has also jumped up by 377 in the last 24 hours. The tally is at 3,007 in the entire country. The variant has now been detected in 27 states and union territories in India. In Maharashtra, according to the president of Maharashtra State Association of Resident Doctors, a total of 338 resident doctors from various hospitals have tested positive for COVID in the last 4 days. Maharashtra is also reporting the highest number of COVID cases. The number is marginally higher from yesterday, but it's still over 20,000 new COVID cases. The centre has now announced that all international arrivals in India will have to undergo 7-day mandatory home quarantine. Also undertake RT-PCR test on the 8th day of arrival in India. After this, they'll have to upload that RT-PCR test to an Air Suvidha portal, and if negative, will have to self-monitor their health for the next 7 days. The centre has said that 19 countries now fall in the at-risk list drawn up. Also, the rules will be effective from Jan 11th. For flights from non-risk countries, 2% of the passengers will be picked up randomly for testing on arrival, and these are new guidelines by the centre. Some political parties have cancelled rallies in Uttar Pradesh. Aam Aadmi Party on Thursday cancelled its election rallies and meetings which were scheduled to be held in the poll-bound Uttar Pradesh on January 8th, 9th and 10th. Congress had earlier cancelled its marathon rallies. According to an NDTV report, Yogi Adityanath has also cancelled his event in Noida yesterday. Election Commission, if you remember, had earlier said that all political parties are in favor of holding elections on time, so there is no update on that elections will go on as scheduled. The WHO chief has warned that Omicron is killing people across the globe and shouldn't be dismissed as mild. In a press conference, he said, and I quote, "While Omicron does appear to be less severe compared to Delta, especially in those vaccinated, it does not mean it should be categorized as mild. Just like previous variants, Omicron is hospitalizing people and it is killing people. In fact, the tsunami of cases is so huge and quick that it is overwhelming health systems around the world," end quote. Earlier, WHO's COVID-19 technical lead had also said, and I quote, "To suggest that Omicron is just a mild disease is very, very dangerous," end quote. Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin has announced that the state government will soon put an end to online gambling. Now, this comes amid reported suicides due to loss of money in online gaming involving betting. He said, and I quote, "This DMK government moved the Supreme Court with an appeal after obtaining legal opinion. Hearing of the cases going on, I assure you that online gaming will be put to end shortly," end quote. Moving on, a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cavalcade was stranded on a flyover in Punjab, the Ministry of Home Affairs has now constituted a committee to probe what they're calling it a security lapse. The committee will be headed by Secretary Security in the Cabinet Secretariat and will also have Intelligence Bureau Joint Director and SPG IG as members. PM Modi's cavalcade was stranded on a flyover 30 kilometers from National Martyrs Memorial in Husseinwala on Wednesday after protesters blocked the road ahead, calling it, and I quote, "a major lapse in the security of the PM," end quote. The MHA had on Wednesday sought a report from the Punjab government and asked the state, and I quote again, "to fix responsibility for this lapse and take strict action," end quote. Also, some good news coming in. The Supreme Court in its verdict today upheld the validity of OBC reservation in NEET, PG and UG and approved the economically weaker sections quota for this year only. Now, the decision on the EWS quota will be taken after final hearing on the 3rd of March 2022. Justice D.Y. Chandrachud said, and I quote, "We have upheld the constitutional validity of 27% reservation for OBC, NEET, PG and UG. For EWS this year, the 10% will apply for this year," end quote. Federation of Resident Doctors Association, who had been protesting for the counselling to begin as soon as possible, said that they have welcomed the judgment of the Supreme Court. Also, an update to the India-China talks that have been going on with an aim to resolve the ongoing standoff on the line of actual control. India and China are likely to hold the 14th round of Corps Commander talks on the 12th of January. And this is an ANI report which has said that this will be the first time that the Indian Army's new 14 Fire and Fury Corps Commander would be representing the country in talks with the Chinese side. He took over formally on Tuesday. Let's now take a look at what's making headlines across the world. Chile will begin offering a fourth shot of the COVID vaccine to immunocompromised citizens from Jan 10th, becoming the first country in Latin America to do so. Now, Chile has one of the world's highest vaccination rates, with more than 85% of its population fully vaccinated. Reportedly, around 57% of the people have also received a third booster shot. Also in the news, the British Armed Forces have deployed around 200 personnel to support hospitals across London, and this is amid growing staff shortages due to COVID. Now, this is according to the Ministry of Defence. According to The Independent, and the report is from The Independent, the MOD said the deployment included 40 military medics and 160 general duty personnel to help fill gaps caused by absences of NHS staff unable to work because they were ill or having to self-isolate. An update now on what's happening in Kazakhstan. According to a Reuters report, the president has given shoot to kill orders against protesters. These protesters have been protesting against rising fuel prices. He declared that constitutional order was mainly restored after the unprecedented unrest in recent days. He also thanked the Russian president for sending troops. Yesterday, Russian paratroopers arrived in Kazakhstan as part of a peacekeeping mission by a Moscow-led military alliance to help the president regain control of the country. Earlier, he had sacked his cabinet and imposed states of emergency in the country's largest city and an oil-rich western region following mass protests that have been taking place for the last couple of days. According to a Washington Post report, Kazakhstan's internet was blacked out on Thursday, and national banking services reportedly were also suspended. Meanwhile, North Korea has blamed hostile forces and COVID for not being able to attend the upcoming Winter Olympics in Beijing and accused the US and its allies of trying to prevent the game's success. North Korea called unspecified moves by the US, and I quote, "an insult to the spirit of International Olympic Charter," end quote. According to state media, North Korea's Olympic Committee and Ministry of Physical Culture and Sports sent a letter to counterparts in China, including the Beijing Olympics Organizing Committee, expressing their support to the games despite their absence. If you remember earlier, the United States, Australia, Britain, Canada had announced a diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Winter Olympics. And on to sports news right now. South Africa has defeated India by 7 wickets on the 4th day of the Johannesburg test to level the 3-match series 1-1. This is India's first defeat in Johannesburg in test cricket history. South Africa chased down a target of 240 to win the match. And one piece of good news before we wrap up this bulletin: Justice Ayesha Malik will be appointed as the first woman judge of Pakistan Supreme Court nearly 75 years after the country's independence. According to Dawn newspaper, the Judicial Commission of Pakistan, headed by Chief Justice Gulzar Ahmad, approved Malik's elevation by a majority of 5 votes against 4. After endorsement by the Judicial Commission, her name will be considered by a parliamentary committee, which rarely goes against the recommendation of the Judicial Commission, according to this newspaper. But that is good news. Thank you so much for watching. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Have a good evening.